What up? Welcome to another episode of the Dealer Talk Podcast. This is your host, Herb Anderson, and thank you so much for tuning in. In today's session, we have the absolute honor to talk to Mr. Jeff Cowan. Jeff is one of those individuals that has a career that spans decades. And so I'm very, very excited to be able to pick his brain, learn from his insights, and most importantly, be able to pass those insights to you, the audience. If you're a decision maker within your dealership and don't fully understand the fixed op side of things, then you want to check out this episode. If you want to learn how to leverage your service department to gain advantage in the marketplace, then you want to listen to this episode. If you just want to understand the consumer of today when it comes to fixed operations, then you want to listen to this episode. I can't tell you how many insightful knowledge bombs you're going to get from this session. I've listened to this multiple times, and every time I listen to it, I get another nugget. I get something else that makes me really think about the advantage that we have on the service side of the house. So get ready for this session. Thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on the show. Jeff Cowan on the Dealer Talk Podcast. Let's get into it. Let's check it out. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dealer Talk Podcast. This is your host, Herb Anderson. My co-host, Eric the Viking Nelson. What's up, Eric? How are you, man?
Oh, Herb, fantastic. How are you, my brother?
I'm doing amazing, and I'm super stoked to have the session we're going to have today with just a wonderful, wonderful guest. I'm super excited to start having a conversation. I'm just pumped, man. I think it's going to be a good session.
Yeah, we actually have a celebrity online. I mean, this is a big deal, bro. It turns out he's got two dogs that never bark until we do podcasts. We just learned that. That was breaking news. We wanted to be the first to break that exclusive. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, before we kind of set it up and do the intro and talk really quick here, I want to kind of set it up, you know, with the the thought of the importance of service. And the reason why I wanted to have that conversation is because on my side, I mean, if you're following the show, you know that I'm a fixed ops guy that, I started as a technician and worked my way up to writing and managing. And now as a consulting on that side of the business, I'm seeing more and more of a push or a little bit more interest. The way I kind of describe it now is there's a little bit of a spotlight on the fixed operations side of things, which, I think it's amazing, right? I've always seen that as the long-term success strategy of the dealership. And I think the guest for today is somebody that we can definitely dive deep into that topic and that conversation. But on your end, Eric, obviously, because you're doing it day in and day out, man. And I know that you see the value in service. But for 2019, as you sit right now, how has that played a role in this year? In particular, with the contraction, obviously, on new car side. On the new car side of things. I mean, are you trying to just get more profits out of your service department? Kind of what's your take on it?
Well, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I was having a conversation today. We were interviewing a new kind of a content creator guy, and he said, "Well, where's your focus at? How do you differentiate yourself?" I said, "Well, quite frankly, our motto is our total focus and where we hold our attention is that, it's my belief that we should service our community so well that sales comes, just as a natural thing from that. I mean, that's really what the residual should be. It should be that you service your community so well. That's the only way you can stand out. That's really the only differentiator you have from anybody else. We all have metal that we can sell, quote unquote sell, but it's really only how you are going to be allowed to service the community you've been given that you get to remain different and fantastic and hopefully great at what you do. So Yeah, that's my thoughts.
Cool, man. I love that perspective. I know you've talked about it before. Let's get into it, man. So
Let's go.
the guest we have for today is, I think, like over 40 years of experience, 29 years in on the training or coaching side of things. I've heard of his training program a gazillion times at almost every store I've ever been at, and it's just humbling, and I'm super honored to have Mr. Jeff Cowan on the show today. Jeff, what's going on, sir? How are you?
Thanks for having me on the show. This is very exciting.
Yeah, man, we are.
And just so you know, I don't mean to start out sounding like a jerk, but just so you know, I've actually, beginning next Monday, believe it or not, I will be able to say that I've been in business for 32 years. Can you believe that?
Oh my God, that's amazing!
Wow, fantastic!
Right on.
That's some fun stuff.
Yeah, man. You obviously need no introduction, but just for the people that are kind of maybe getting into the business right now, if you could just give us a quick recap on your background, that'd be awesome.
Well, I've been in sales my entire life. When I say my entire life, believe it or not, I got into it when I was about 12, 13 years old. I had an uncle that owned some flower nurseries and grocery stores and that type of stuff. And he kind of took me into my arm when I was really young and introduced me to the world of selling. And so by the time I got to my teen years and started working in the mall, I automatically went to selling jobs. One thing leads to another, and started a consulting firm. But before I did that, as it relates to what I do now, is I was a service advisor. And when I was a service advisor, we're going back here almost 34, 35 years now. Nobody was walking around cars. The shops were more set up for warranty. Nobody was really talking about tires. I mean, I remember they used to tell us that, if somebody needs tires, send them over to the tire store, stuff like that. And so, oddly enough, what happened was standing there watching and listening and hearing what people are asking for, it hit me that this could actually turn into a sales job. And so I did that. And when I was writing service, I basically created a program that is on how to walk around a car and how to talk to customers and not only help them get what they need, but at the same time, when you're doing that, set yourself up so you get the perfect or near perfect survey scores, you get the retention, you get high effective labor rate and the like. And I was successful in doing that. And I don't mean to sound pretentious, that I was successful in doing that and was asked to start training other people. And after a short term, I realized I had something and took it out on the road. And here we are, in a few days, 32 years later. So it's been a great ride. I personally, our company was based around me standing on service drives. I was the first one to do this. Stand on service drives side by side with advisors, coach, critique, role play, and write service as they're helping real customers. And I did that myself for the first 15, 16 years, and ended up on 700 different service drives of all types, all shapes, both in the United States of America and Canada. Even service departments that didn't have drives were written up out in the parking lot. We still have a lot of those customers. And then what changed at that point is I started doing workshops and working with the manufacturers and different things like that. And so I hired trainers to do that for me. And so now as a company, we can say we've been on close to 4,000 different service drives all across the United States.
Right on. So, wow, what a background. Like I said, I've obviously heard about you, and known about you for a really long time. Again, it's just an honor to have you on the show. And I kind of wanted to start with a high level question, right? When we look at service as it stands today, or the fixed op side of the house, and I'm sure that you've run across to maybe a pattern, if you will, just because you've been in so many stores and you've seen it over and over again. But could you talk about some of the main issues, some of the revolving issues that you see, and most importantly, kind of some of the ways that, or some takeaways for some of those decision makers that are tuning in right now?
Well, so if you're asking for the types of concerns that we see over and over, probably the biggest concern is that I see right now currently is that most of the service drives we go into, and I'm going to say it that way because about 4 years ago, we started getting heavily involved with non-dealership service departments, what's typically referred to as the aftermarket. So these are statements that really apply to both. But the biggest issue I see right now going on is that, especially on the dealership side, is they don't know their customer. When we visit places today, when we step on the drive, and this is a big if they have processes, they're processes that were typically developed 15 years ago or more, and they were the processes that were set up for a customer who left 10 or 12 years ago and is never coming back. So the first thing is they don't know their customers. And so the classic mistake that we're seeing, and it's being led this way through the industry itself, is everybody's trying to turn themselves into Amazon, and they're trying to tech their way to success. And when I say tech their way to success, they're doing everything they can to pull the service advisor and the service personnel away from the customers so they don't have to relate to them, because they falsely believe that customers don't want to be talked to, customers don't like the communication part and all that, and the exact opposite is true. I mean, even to the point where there's a company out there right now that is offering kiosk, where a customer will show up at a car dealership and they won't even have to talk to an advisor. They check the car in themselves. And, I think that would be a great product to use for night drop or after hours pickup, but it's going to be dead on arrival. I mean, because we're in a business, unfortunately or fortunately, where communication is it. I mean, when's the last time somebody texted you a text and said, "Do you want to spend $600?" and you said yes without talking to them? So, as much as everybody's trying to turn themselves into Amazon, the reality of the situation is, talking about all sales in all industries, 86% of all sales made on a daily basis still require eyeball to eyeball or voice to voice contact. So, they've gone down the wrong path again. Bringing it full circle is because they don't know who this customer is. And one of the key things are missing. And feel free to interrupt me, by the way, if I talk too much.
No, we're here to learn, man. Feed us.
That's the whole reason why you're here.
But one of the big things they're missing is so simple it's not even funny. And that's another thing, is we're trying to complicate something that's very simple. But the key thing that really proves everything out that I'm talking about here is when I say they don't know the customer, we forget what customers really like. And what I mean by that is if you or me tonight, we're home and we decide that we want to go out and we want to buy a new product or service. What's the first thing you do before you leave your house? You Google it, right?
Right.
And the reason you Google it is to find out who has what you're looking for, who does it best, who's got fair pricing structure, and all that stuff. So when you leave the house, you pretty much already know where you're going, what you're looking for, how long it's going to take to get it, and what it costs. Well, so do service customers. I mean, a service customer sitting at home tonight knowing that they need preventative maintenance or repair, they're going to Google it. And when they Google it, they're typically led to one of the 4 or 5 major blogs written by master technicians. And on those blogs, they'll be told that what they're looking for is a real simple problem, doesn't take a long time, may not cost anything because it can be covered under warranty. But in the same blog, they'll be told that what they're looking for could be a very big job that requires a lot of time and costs a lot of money. And don't be surprised, based on your mileage, if they don't tell you you need this, and this, because you do. So now the customer knows what they need, what it's going to cost, and how long it's going to take to then Google who does that. And this is where it gets interesting. On average, the dealership's name will pull up on a page of nine places they could go to, but they pick that dealer. So my point is this: by the time they've done all that, they've picked the dealer. By the time they get to the dealer, they're already sold. They already know what they want, what they need, how long it's going to take, what it's going to cost, all that stuff. So it's never been easier to sell them, and it's never been easier to get the survey scores, the retention, if you're prepared for that. Now, just because the customer knows what they want doesn't mean that they're going to walk up to a machine or just and say, okay, it said online I'm supposed to spend $1,000, so let me push these buttons and I'm ready to spend $1,000. They still want to talk to somebody like that and talk to somebody and get that person's opinion. This is what I've learned. This is what I know. This is what I've been told I need. What do you think? And so now it goes back to a person. And so now we got to talk to them and validate everything that they've read online, or show them that what they read online may not necessarily be true. So to me, the biggest thing that I see going on is the dealerships today don't know who this customer is, and they're not prepared for them, because here's where it gets real, because, and I think the biggest reason they're leaving, and being on the aftermarket side has really opened my eyes up, because I get to see both sides. But and the aftermarket right now, frankly, is doing a much better job than dealerships are, because they understand the dealership's weaknesses. They understand things like this. They understand that the biggest question that a customer has when they show up after doing all that stuff, after Googling it, right? The biggest question they have is not how much is it going to cost, how long is it going to take, or any of that stuff. The biggest question they have is the customer is do you know as much about this product that I know because I've Googled you? Now, let me tell you what I mean. If you were going to go out and buy a new TV, and after Googling it, you found that the best TV for you is a Samsung brand, and so you've researched it on 2 or 3 different sites, and every one of those sites told you, by the way, when you get there and buy this TV out of the box, it's a great TV. It comes with HDMI cables. You can hang it up. You have a better picture you've ever had. But if you want to get the maximum picture and the maximum sound, you'd be smart to invest an extra $100 in gold-tipped HDMI cables, because you'll double the number of pixels, you'll double the sound quality and the light. So the first 2 or 3 places you go to, they're not talking about gold-tipped HDMI cables. What do you think? You think this person doesn't know their product, they don't know what they're talking about, so you don't buy from them. And it's the same thing on these service drives. When you show up, somebody's got to stand there and talk to these customers and reconfirm what really needs to be done, explain why they need to be done, and benefits, and short they need to sell them. So that's the biggest thing that we see. That the next biggest thing is accountability. It's nobody wants to hold their people accountable. I mean, it's stunning to me, and the proof there is we're a very word track based company. We have literally hundreds of word tracks, and word tracks are so simple to use and so easy, and they're really the key. But dealers let their people close them on. I don't like word tracks. I'm never going to use word tracks. My customers won't fall for word tracks and the like. And it's crazy they fall for that, because every dealer you talk to wants to deliver world-class service or Disney type experience, or they want to be the Ritz-Carlton. Yet they won't do the one thing, the simplest thing those companies and many others like them do to become successful, and that's choreograph and word track their people.
Wow.
I mean, when you go, it gets crazy. I mean, check this out. These advisors and managers say they don't like word tracks, but here's the reality of the situation. Because I've stood with advisors thousands of times as they wrote their first customer, and it's not a question whether they like word tracks or how to use them. They use them and they love them. Here's the proof. They go out their first day, they approach the first customer and ask them, what can I do for you? Customer says, I'm here to get an oil change. Now panic sets in. Why? This new advisor doesn't know what to say. So what do? They look to the guy standing beside him or the girl standing beside him that's ridden service for a few years and say, what do I say? So that experienced person tells them what to say, gives them a word track. And so that new advisor takes that word track and repeats that word track to the customer, and that word track works on some level. So then take that word track and put it in a great big bear hug, and every time they find themselves in the same situation, they say the exact same thing. So it's not a question whether or not they use word tracks or not, they do. It's not a question whether or not they like them or not, they do. The question is, are they using the right one that will get the maximum effect? The bigger question is, are your people on your drive using word track that they made up themselves or was given to them by a service and another underperforming advisor? Are they word tracks that you put in your mouth because you know word tracks is what makes all these great companies great? So long-winded answer there, but there you go.
No, I love it. And I kind of want to explore it a little bit further. And what I mean by that is I want to kind of continue the thought here. I loved what you said about not understanding our customers. I think that as we sit today, these are all opportunities, huge opportunities to differentiate ourselves, right? And I know Eric touched on that in the beginning, but I truly believe that one of the ways to do that is through how we service the customer post sale. I think a lot of the emphasis and focus right now is on acquiring new customers, and then we sell them a car and we forget about the what happens after that, right? And all the opportunities that lie after that purchase happens. And so my question is, based on your experience and what you're seeing out there, do you think that we are kind of forgetting about the training and the process part of the service department? Meaning, are we training our service advisors and the service managers as much as maybe we're focusing on the front of the house? Is that a disservice, do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
It's not even close. It's not even close. These are numbers from 7 years ago, but 7 years ago I did a Pro Talk study. So these are Pro Talk numbers. And what we found out is that for every $1 that a service department spends to train their advisors on how to handle customers, now, I'm not talking about how to write a warranty or how to use their database or how to do any of a warranty, all that stuff that the factory does advisory training. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real sales training and training that shows them how to handle customers. For every service advisor to do that, they'll spend about $1,000 on a salesperson. So it's 1 to 1,000.
Wow.
It's $1 for every 1,000 they spend on a salesperson. And here's what's crazy about that. Here, check these numbers out. An advisor because a service advisor will have more impact on your dealership than anybody else. Here's why. An advisor that writes just 15 customers a day, which is what the average one does, will have more impact on the survey scores, more impact on the sales, and more impact on customer retention and the dealership's ability to sell future cars than anybody else in the dealership. They'll speak to more people in a single day than the average car salesperson will in a week. You know what I mean? Yet they received, again, $1 for every spent on them. There's 1,000 spent on the sales side, teaching them how to talk to customers. Not how to use the database, not how to do that stuff, but how to talk to customers. And so the person that talks to the customer more than anybody else gets almost zero training. It's insane.
Jeff, those numbers are crazy. Oh my God, that blows my mind. Why do you think that is, man? You've seen a lot of stores. Why do you think that we fall this far off when it comes to service? Is it just, there's got to be some sort of commonality, because it just can't be that as an industry we're failing this bad at maintaining the customers that we already have. That's how I look at it. It's the long-term success strategy of the dealership. Those customers are coming back saying yes to you every single time they choose to service at your store. And that's obviously, like you said, it builds relationships. It causes that customer to purchase another vehicle, send you their family and friends, right? Make referrals. Why are we missing in such a big way?
This is probably not going to make me look like a very nice person, and this isn't about being nice or not nice. It's about telling people what they need to hear if they really want to be successful.
Right.
I think it's a couple big basic things. The biggest thing that I've seen is that most dealers and general managers don't know fixed operations. Most of them come from the selling side, right. And so what they do is they rely on managers who haven't been fixed operations directors who haven't been trained in the people skills to give them information. So they don't understand fixed operations. And I'm almost tempted to say they fear fixed operations because to them it just seems like a big, complicated, heat case driven department that they don't want anything to do with, And so they don't understand it. The manufacturers don't understand it. Now, the manufacturers are great at building cars. I'll give them that. You take the average vehicle rolling off the assembly line today, I don't care who's making it. If it's sold in the United States of America, it is so far superior than it was 34 years ago. It's unbelievable. So they know how to build the cars, but they don't know anything about service because they've never ridden service. They've never stepped their foot in a department most of the time, yet they're out there telling dealers how to run these departments. So the first thing is there's a big misunderstanding. So now we're stuck with the person that's running the shop. So the guy that's running the shop, and again, this is going to make me sound a little bit jerky, but it's really what I feel. So you get a guy, he's writing service, and if he's mediocre, and when I say guy, I mean guy or gal, that's just the old school, I guess, coming out. But the person writing service, they come in out of a position where maybe they were a waiter, maybe at a restaurant or a server at a restaurant, maybe they were a truck driver, maybe they worked in some form of retail, and they were making, let's say, 35,000. And so now you put them in a position of being an advisor, and the average advisor makes 65,000 a year. So now you're paying somebody to do a job that's doing it very mediocre because they haven't been trained right. So now they're making great money. They stick around long enough, now they get to be the manager, so now they're cracking 100,000. So now life is good because, and so they're making more money than they ever thought they'd make without a college degree and all that stuff. And I didn't go to college, so I'm not making fun of them. I didn't go to college myself. And so now they're making money, and they either just don't think it's possible to make anymore, or they don't want to do what it takes to make more. And so when their owner comes to them and says, "Hey, I was just in this dealer 20 meeting. There was this guy named Jeff, and he says, boy, if we learn these word tracks and we learn this simple process, that we could increase by 5/10 to an hour, and that would mean each one of your advisors would make $25,000 to $30,000 more a year. And maybe you'd make $30,000 or $40,000 more a year. But we have to change what we're doing." The person that, they I think many times get scared and overwhelmed and say, "Boss, don't you think if we could make those kind of numbers, I would do that for you? I mean, I'm putting in 45, 50 hours a week. Don't you think if that was really possible, I'd be able to deliver that? I've been here for 5 years in this chair. I mean, if that was possible, don't you think everybody would be doing it?" The dealer goes, "Yeah, I just wanted to check." And I think the conversation ends. Oh, and it's probably a little oversimplified, but I just think, and then when you do get a dealer, hold on, it can't be better, and you go in and you literally prove to them in 5 days that, "Hey, look, I just showed you in 5 days every dime that you gave me to show you how to do this, you got back 3 times in the first 5 days, and the heat cases went from astronomical to nothing literally in 5 days." Then it gets down to accountability, and then that's when you get to push back, and the dealer or the service manager, the advisor, under a veil threats, that, "Hey, I might quit if you really make me do this," and they back down. It never happens. So I think, in a nutshell, bring it down to the simplest thing. I think that's it.
But how can we change that perspective at the dealership level? And the reason I ask is, just in case there's, somebody struggling right now with that particular department, and they're looking for ways to maybe, kind of move the needle. Where should someone begin? How can they identify some telltale signs that something's not? There's a lot of opportunities, or there's some misses that they're not being taken advantage of.
Well, I think that's a great question, by the way. I think the first step is you have to check your ego at the door, and understand that no matter how good, I'm sorry?
I love that. That was awesome.
Because you have to understand that even though you're doing well, and financially might be doing well, and your department might be doing well as measured by the manufacturer, it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing well.
No, that's probably the best answer I've heard. Yeah.
I mean, I got sent from a district. They're not here to defend themselves, so I won't tell you who. But I got sent from a district manager today that's over 12 stores, and he sent me the reports, and he said, "Look what we're doing. We're doing great here." And these are all Chevy stores, and their average between these 12 stores was 1.4 hours per repair order, including oil changes. They had an effective labor rate of 72% of the door rate, and their customer retention was hovered right around 35%, which is above average, by the way. Mm-hmm. And they're just as pleased get. So the first thing you got to do is just say, "Okay, this really isn't good. If somebody's out there saying we can get more than that, you can. Maybe I don't know everything." So there are stores out there that are getting substantially higher numbers. What are they doing? And then drop that ego and go look for it. Because here's the thing: if you want to get bigger numbers, you got to change, and you got to change what you're doing, because the old definition of insanity. Keep doing what you're doing, expecting different numbers. You're kidding yourself. So first, you have to check your ego at the door and say, "Okay, this is me. I'm the one sitting in the chair. I gotta be better. Okay, I gotta do something different. If I really want to get these numbers, what is it these other places are doing that are getting these big numbers?" And then just go after it. And I just don't talk this stuff. I walked it. So far in 2019, I've invested over $20,000 in my education to become just a better speaker, not necessarily be a better businessman or a better creator of content or that stuff, but to be a better public speaker. So when I'm doing these workshops and keynotes, I can be the absolute best, because even at the age of 59, having done this now for nearly 32 years, and not to toot my own horn, but have been introduced many times as a world-class speaker, that's not good enough for me. There's people out there that are getting bigger audiences. There's people out there that are doing better, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. It's a never-ending process, you know? I mean, it's just a never-ending process to improve yourself. So I think the first thing is just check your ego at the door, and then realize that what you're doing, is it working? And so let me give you some metrics to measure yourself against. I don't care what your manufacturer is. These are metrics that are possible in any store I've ever been in. All right, if you're not producing 2.5 hours per repair order, including oil changes, you're failing. If your customer retention isn't at least in the 80 to 85% range right now, you're failing. If your effective labor rate's not within 92 to 95% of your door rate, you're failing. If your survey scores aren't posted in the top 7% in the nation, you're failing. And it's not just one of four of those categories; it's all four, and it's never been easier to do. And so if you're not hitting those numbers, you got to walk over and look in the mirror and say, "What am I doing wrong?" You know, I mean, I preach this to salespeople all the time. I just sent a video out on this the other day. One of my tips of the day is if you were in a sale and it's just you and the customer, and you got the sale, that was because you did something right. But if you're talking to a customer and you don't get the sale, then it's just you and that customer. You can't blame your managers, your dealer, the manufacturer. You were the one that was in control of that. And it's the same thing with management, general managers, fixed operations director, and dealers. You know, at some point in time, you got to look in the mirror and say, what am I not doing? What tools am I not providing my people? What processes do I not have in place to get these numbers? Because these are numbers that are doable.
Yeah, no, I love it. And thanks for the metrics. I think that's a great baseline for the people listening in. And I totally agree. And I love that what you said, man. You know, there's no finish lines in life, right? You always got to be chasing the next best version of yourself. So, yeah, man.
You do. You know, I'll tell you how far I take it. You know, I'm in one of those gooey relationships where I'm married to the woman of my dreams, and we really like each other. You know, it's a rarity these days.
That helps, man.
It helps. It really does.
We really, really like each other, and if there's friction, it usually revolves around her saying something like this: "Why are you so hard on yourself? You know, you got to give yourself a break. Look what you've accomplished." And my comment back to her every time is, if I'm not hard on myself, who's going to be? You know, and if I'm not striving, hey, if we put 50 people in the last workshop I did, why can't we do 60? If I did 60, why can't I do 70? If I did 100, why can't I do 200? What's the secret? Because there's people out there that, you know, that do that in the car business. You know, you look at Joe Birdie, and he's putting, I don't think he's done a class where he's not had at least 150 people in the class in the last 20 years. You know, same thing with Grant Cardone, same thing with a lot of these guys. You know, so what, you know, how do you get to be? How do you make that happen? And you know, I can excuse it away by saying for every one service advisor, there's 10 salespeople, but then I'm just excusing it away. You know, and so you got to work on it. I think that's what these people have to do, is just say there is a better way. Because you know, I don't think what anybody realizes is that according to the NADA, customer retention and service is 29%. Now, if you were a hotel and you had 29% occupancy, if you were a restaurant, you had 29% of your chairs filled every night, you'd be out of business in six months. I mean, so it's not sustainable, right? So all it's going to take is one of the manufacturers to stand up and say, you know what, dealers can't figure it out. So why don't we just go to Napa and AutoZone and let them start selling factory design and engineered parts? And why don't we go to Pep Boys and Firestone and Goodyear and all the independents and say, if you want to be factory trained technician, you want to pay the price to go to school, we'll let you do that. And then all of a sudden, now the aftermarket has the same parts and the same certifications. It's over. The service department at a dealership will go the way of a body shop at a dealership. It's over. You know, and when you get down to numbers like 29% customer retention, you're getting pretty close to where I can't see where one of the manufacturers aren't going to jump off that cliff and say, why should we only serve 29% of the market when we could go for 100% of it? I mean, it just takes one of them to do that. It's over.
Jeff, let me ask you a question. So let's say, because I want to use this from a perspective of the sales desk, right?
The other thing is, if there's dealers listening to this, their primary thing is they want to sell cars, right? Well, I can prove to you, if you want to sell more cars, sell more service. Because just think about this. I mean, if you sell a customer, you help them get what they need, the preventative maintenance and the repairs as they need them, then the car's going to run better. If the car runs better, they're happier. If they're happy, you get better survey scores. You get better survey scores, they're coming back. So now you look back over 100,000 miles from driving that vehicle, the customer sits and says to themselves, the salesperson said I could drive this for 100,000 miles, and with the exception of doing some preventative maintenance here and there and some line repair, the car would be no trouble, and it's been no trouble, so why wouldn't I go back and buy another one? But if a customer is not being sold what they need, then the car doesn't run the way it's supposed to, you don't get the service, you look back over 100,000 miles, and the salesperson lies. They said if I bought this, there'd be no concerns. And just the last 2 years alone driving, I've had thousands that to keep the money. Now, they'll never admit it's because they didn't do this preventative maintenance. They'll never blame themselves. They'll blame it on the car. And so if the car's not going to do last the way they said, why would I go buy another one? You want to sell more cars, sell more services. You're up around 2.5 hours per hour with a 92% effective labor rate, you're going to sell a lot of cars.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. So I got a question here from Eric. I think there's a little connection issue here, but Eric, I want to make sure we can cover the question. What is it, and I'll relate it.
Yeah, so translate as best you can. So my question to him is, from a sales aspect, if I'm a desk guy, if I'm a GSM sitting, knowing full well that in order to gain more, I have to be able to serve more. What's the best way to be able to have that conversation to gain access into the service department? I mean, what's his suggestions on how to kind of implement change from the inside?
Yeah, I apologize if you asked that question. I talked over. I couldn't hear you until just now, so I apologize if I did that because I typically am a
I dig it.
Listener. But that's a great question as well because as you know, both of you know, there's a wall between service and sales, and they typically most dealerships don't get along. And so the first thing is you bring down that wall, and I think the best way for GSM to do it, and this is nothing new, but it's the best thing I've seen to break down that wall. Is that the first step is put a salesperson on that service drive every morning. Because if a service drive has 50 customers come across it every morning, there's a car deal there. And so what you do is you set up a system, and we don't have the time tonight for me to go into depth on it, but you put in a system where that salesperson that's out there becomes a greeter, and they work with the advisor, so the advisor can identify, hey, look, this is a very high mileage car, and this car is going to need a lot of work. So this might be a customer over here that you might want to introduce yourself to, and maybe offer a test drive type of thing. And or the salesperson just walks out and says, hey, my name is Jeff, and I'm the greeter, and I'm going to help you get connected with your factory trained service advisor this morning. And in doing that, I want to give you a card and just let you know that I am a sales representative here. And should you ever come to a point where you want to trade this vehicle in, or you're looking for a second vehicle, or somebody else in your family or one of your friends looking for a vehicle, I'm your guy. I don't know if and you might want to tell your friends that the 2020s are in the ground, and if anybody wants to take a test drive, I'm your guy. And I can even take you one on the day if you want. But back then, let me find out who your advisor is and get you hooked up. Now, that was very rough. I mean, you get the gist of what I'm doing. So now there's that connection. The next thing to do, this is really old school. I've not seen anybody do this in a long time. But once a month, you have a after hours. My is gone blank here. I forget what they call it. You have an after hours meeting where you invite your new car, people who just bought new cars and used cars in. And you have a service meeting with them, and you introduce them to the service department where the GSM would get there and say, look, we want to have you come in here tonight for a number of reasons. Number one, you bought the car, invested in it with us here, and we want to make sure that you get full use out of it. So to do that, you're going to have to take care of it like we talked about when we delivered the vehicle. So we wanted to introduce you to that staff. A couple of them are going to get up here, and they're going to explain some very basic things about your car. We're going to have a period tonight where you can eat, drink some soft drinks and have a couple of sandwiches. They're going to explain the different features. But they're also going to show you how it works when you come in here. We want you to be comfortable coming in. They're going to show you what it takes to get set up for your first check-in time, what's going to happen during that check-in time, what they're going to be looking at every time they come in to make sure that the vehicle runs efficiently, economically sound, and the like. And so you get the two departments working together and looking for customers for each other, and where there's spiffs that might fly back and forth and the like. But that's the steps I would take. I would have service, and then there's a third component. Third component is you have your salespeople go through the database and mine for customers that have had their cars for 3 or 4 years that are in good shape on the service, and you call them up and you offer the opportunity for them to come in and check out the new vehicles. Hey, Mr. Customer, my name is Jeff. I'm calling from XYZ Motors this evening. I'm calling because I understand you've got a 2017 or a 2017 Ram pickup. Is that right? Well, great. You've been bringing it. Our record shows you've been bringing it in here for service, and you've done all the service, and our service team says that your car is in perfect shape. Would you agree with that? Well, good. I understand you're paying about $800 a month for that. Is that right? Oh, you're not. You're only paying $450. Well, I got some great news for you. There's a big need for trucks just like yours on our used car lot. I don't know if you've thought about it, but if you want to bring that in, we give you full value for that truck, full used car value on that right now, and be able to probably with that be able to trade you into a brand new Ram pickup truck for about the same of what you're paying right now. I mean, the 2020s are here. Have you thought about that? Would you like to test drive one? And if so, what would you want on the truck? A phone call like that going out to the customers about every 30 customers you call, you'll get 5 people convinced the time to come in, 3 will show up, and 1 will roll down the street.
Love that.
And so you got to get the two working together that way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's again, I mean, it plays into long-term success for the dealership. I mean, those customers. Here's the other thing: when you do that, when you utilize your service department to mine or generate new business, those customers are generally not in market, right? So that's one of the ways to actually generate new business, right? Because the market's going to do what the market's going to do. All you can do is just take market share away from your competitors. But when you sell a car to somebody that wasn't really looking to buy a car, that's when to me, those are true wins, right? Because they're true new opportunities.
And if you look at what I'm talking about here, it's not sending a text, it's not sending an email, it's not having online reservations, it's not any of that tech stuff where you're not talking to the customer. It's actually communicating with the customer. Now, that contact may be initiated by a text, because I think that's how you get people's attention today, is everybody texts, right? But at some point in time, you got to pick up the phone and call them and talk to them. And the more you go that direction, I mean, the thing with technology, I'm not against it. People are relying on that's the problem. The mistake they're making. You don't rely on technology to sell service and sell cars. You use the technology to make you more efficient, to get you to the customer, so you can get them on the phone and talk to them. I just bought a car, and the whole thing started. It was funny. The whole thing started with a simple text. My salesperson texted me and said, "Hey, Mr. Cowan, I know you've had your car now for 3 years or two and a half years, and the lease is coming up. I don't know if you were thinking about it." He just basically he said, "I don't know if you've been thinking about it, but man, the 2020s are here. Have you thought about that?" And I simply text back, "No." And he said, "Well, I've got some great, exciting news. Would you be open to me calling you in the next few minutes?" And I text back, "Sure." And he gets me on the phone, and within 48 hours, I'm driving a new car.
Wow, man! If he sold you, he's good.
But if you want to continue that conversation through a text, well, I can get you a car for about the same. I would have just said no.
Then you're out.
His charm and his ability and skill comes through, and I bought a car.
That's awesome, man. That's a great story. So, we're getting close to that time, but I definitely wanted to make sure. I don't think I could forget myself if I don't ask you this question while I got you on the show. And that question is advisors. should we look at the advisors as a salesperson or as, I don't know, a customer service rep or an order taker or something like that? And here's what I mean by that. So I have the philosophy that service advisor has a better relationship with your customers than the salesperson ever will, right? Because they see that customer more often. Oftentimes they know the name of their kids. They know if their kids are in college. They know how many pets they have. And I don't think that dealers utilize that resource to sell new vehicles enough. Do you think that those are missed opportunities? And also beyond that, do you think that we should be looking at the ASMs or the advisors as extra additional salespeople, not just to sell cars, but treat them give them the training that you would a salesperson?
Well, I'm just, again, this is going to sound harsh, but I think, direct is the way to go. Any dealership out there that has service advisors and doesn't recognize service advisors are your best resource for sales in the dealership, it's just they're not being truthful with themselves. These people are absolutely salespeople, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you can call it service advisor, service consultant, ASM. You can call it whatever you want, but the customers walk through the door. They're not dumb. These are salespeople that are being commissioned and the like. So now it's out on the table. So let's hire them like salespeople. Let's train them like salespeople. Let's give them the tools that salespeople need, and let's hold them accountable to get the numbers that you deserve by having that dealership because you've given them the opportunity to make six figures. This service advisor's chair, it'll pay $100,000 a year. I don't care what manufacturer you represent. I don't care where your dealership is, how big or small it is. That advisor can make $100,000 a year, and an advisor that's making $100,000 a year is making that dealership a ton of money not only in service, but even more in car sales because it's so related. So, it just gets down to this. Imagine a day when you walk out of your service drive and you've got 2.5 hours for a repair order. Imagine a day when you walk out and you've got an effective labor rate that's 92 to 95% of your door rate. Imagine a day when your perfect survey scores and customer retention 85%. I want the dealers to imagine that, and I want them to imagine the day when there's literally no heat on the service drive because that day is possible. That day can be here and be now. It's this simple. It's processes where everybody that no matter who you're talking to, you walk in, whether it's an advisor, a manager, a porter, a greeter, shuttle bus driver, cashier, parts counter, they all say the same thing, the exact same word track. It's all choreographed because that's what Ritz-Carlton does, that's what Disney does, that's what Nordstrom's does, that's what Chick-fil-A does, that's what Ruth Chris does. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's so choreographed word track. And as soon as you get your head wrapped around that and you create that same thing in your dealership, then you're going to get all of those numbers in order. You're going to sell cars. I mean, this thing has always been about communication. It always has been and always will be for the foreseeable future. It's going to be that way. These are salespeople. Hire them like salespeople. Train them like salespeople. Give them the tools to salespeople. Pay them like salespeople. And you won't be able to count your money fast enough, and the level of success you'll reach will be just unbelievable. It's really that simple. We're taking something very simple, and we're trying to make it very, very complex. And the more complex you make it, the further you move away from your goals. It's that simple.
Oh my gosh, Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show. This is amazing. I love this conversation. So much value here for sure. I'm super excited to share this with the audience. Lots more questions to ask. Hopefully you will be as gracious to join us on a part 2 of this deal because I think there's more things. I mean, I wanted to talk to you about retention and service market share and CSI, but we'll be here for 3 hours.
Anytime, you have no idea how much it's been an honor to be on your show. I think you got this thing backwards. I was so honored and so stoked for this evening. I've been waiting on it. I think we actually booked this 3 or 4 weeks ago. I've been preparing for it, waiting for it. So the honor is all mine. Anytime that you think there's value in me being on your show, you just contact me and I'll make it work. What you've got going on there is so amazing, and I hope people listening understand the value that you are providing to them because this is unbelievable. You're the star here, and I really appreciate you presenting me with the honor and the opportunity to be on your show. It's great.
Oh my God.
Golly, drop the mic. Hey, look, I just turned this thing off. Let's not say another word. That was, gosh, I don't know how to respond.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. Wow, that's super humbling. So we have one question that we ask everybody that comes on the show, and then we'll wrap it up. I do want to make sure that we give you a chance to talk about what do you have coming up, how can people get in touch with you, where they can get your stuff. Before we give you a chance to do that, and we're going to put it on the show notes too, Jeff, so we'll make sure to link your website and podcast and all that stuff there. But one question I ask everybody that comes to the show is, where do you see the industry headed, the automotive industry headed in the next 5 years, and why?
I think that it's going to be huge. I think we're on a run here that's going to be unprecedented. And I know that car sales have been a little bit depressed this year and whatnot, but I think we've got an economy here that just won't stop. If you take a look at what's going on and how everybody's trying to slow down, it's not happening. This thing is wrong. So I think if you're an aggressive dealer and a progressive dealer, general manager, whatever, I think the world is at your fingertips, and I think you could have the biggest and best run you've ever seen. I think the opportunity is there. I think we're in an era of contraction. I think there will be more car dealerships 5 years from now, probably 20% more, but I think there will be less dealers than there are today running the increase in dealerships. It's an era of contraction, and the ones that are going to survive are the ones that are progressive, see what's happening, take advantage of it, and just run with it. I think I would love to be a car dealer right now and looking at what I see could be happening, in fixed operation. And, obviously I'm a little bit biased when I say this because that's where I play around. That's my playground. But I really think the dealer that jumps on the fixed operations could have a 5-year run that's going to be unprecedented. I really believe that.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that it's just prime for the fixed op side of the house, and I'm super excited because, like I said, I've always felt like we've kind of neglected that side of the business, and finally it's becoming more and more in the forefront of decision makers. So awesome. So how can people get in touch with you? What do you feel comfortable sharing on the air? And then we'll also put it on the show notes so people can link up with you, to learn more about you and what you do, and most importantly, how you can help.
I can answer that question for you real quick. If you're shy and don't like talking to people, then automotiveservicetraining.com. Automotiveservicetraining.com is our website. Everything about it is on there. If you like talking to people, 1-800-248-2931, 1-800-248-2931. I've got a whole office full of reps that can answer any questions you'd have. If you want to call in, you want to talk to one of my trainers, or you want to talk to me personally, you just would tell them that, and you give us 24 hours to call you back because we're always traveling, we're always at dealerships doing stuff. If you can talk to my trainers, you can talk to me. Just dial that number. If you want to call me direct, I have no problem giving you my personal cell phone number. It's area code 317-506-1003, 317-506-1003. If I can, I'll pick it up. If not, then it may take me 24 hours to call you back because of my travel and speaking schedule. But if you call, I'll call back. What we've got coming up, I've got some world-class workshops coming up both in Cincinnati and in Chicago here in the next couple of months. We will show you all the work tracks, the processes you need to get the numbers and the metrics we talked about earlier. They're great. I'm very, very proud of these workshops. We just put a lot of effort into them, and I don't want to sound pretentious, but I think they're the best out there. I have a whole staff of trainers that can visit your dealership, stand side by side with your advisors, coach, critique, role-playing, right service to ensure they can do what we say. We have management training. We can set up BDCs. We can do express services. We can do anything in fixed ops. We can help you get set up and take a look at. I've got books, How to Write Service, Your Write Service, Write Your Own Paycheck. You can get it on Amazon.com. It has both a book and a video series if you want that. I've ventured into other books. I've got a book about the Indy 500, which is the number one selling business book ever written about the Indy 500, third best overall. And I've got four books coming out. I've got one coming out here in 2 weeks called The Service Advisor's Bible to Closing Sales and Handling Objections. So we'll have a companion video piece. I've got an online training system, by the way, that supports everything we've talked about. I've got another book that's a general selling book called The Mastering the 6 Areas of Closing. Another one coming out that's really getting some attention called The Forgotten Rules of Professional Salesmanship. And And then early next year, I've got a kids series coming out called The Adventures of Pop and Willie. And then there's 3 of those that works. The first one's called The Adventures of Pop and Willie, and then the second one's called The Adventures of Pop and Willie. The third one's called The Adventures of Pop and Willie and Presley too. So I've got a lot of the table out there to offer, but as it pertains to car dealerships, if you really want to get those numbers, nobody will get them for you quicker, faster, and make it more sustainable than we will. Our processes are simple and effective, and we love doing what we do. So you call us up and listen to our podcast too. You get those through the website. Anything you need, we'll help you out with. We love what we do.
Right on, man. You know what I like? I know somebody's serious when they come on the show and they give their cell phone number. So that's awesome.
No doubt.
That's awesome. So I'm going to put everything, all the links to all the websites, the books, the cell phone, the 1-800 number, all that stuff. We're going to put it in the show notes. So make sure to check that out. Get in touch with this gentleman. Oh my God, this is amazing. Unbelievable. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. We're definitely going to reach out to do part 2. There's no way we can't. There's just so much value. But for now, that's all we have, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as usual, we'll talk later. You made it all the way to the end. Congratulations. Thank you so much for tuning in. We truly, truly appreciate it. If you like this episode and you think of somebody that can benefit from this information, please make sure to share it. Share this podcast so that they can take these insights back to the dealership and implement on their day-to-day. Thank you so much. And as usual, we'll talk later.